yesterday it was reported Israeli forces in Jenin in the West Bank snuck into a hospital disguised as I guess as women
and hospital workers. I think we have a little bit of that footage if you'd want to see it, Sam. It's not graphic, but you can see how they're dressed.
All right, yeah, let's see this. They're going into a hospital, and reportedly there were, according to them, 3 Hamas injured soldiers in there. And
they have not provided evidence for this, by the way.
They have not provided evidence as to who these people were, but
you can see there.
Right.
And the people were clearly injured, that they came in and assassinated. There's really no other way to articulate it. Supposedly, one of them had a handgun on them. But again,
one of them was paralyzed.
Yes. I mean, these people were injured people. Could have been Hamas fighters. Maybe not Hamas fighters.
Well, if they were Hamas fighters, they couldn't be in any Gaza hospitals because Israel has destroyed all those.
And they were taken in and assassinated. And I mean, I had a problem with the assassination that we did on bin Laden, frankly. I mean, the idea is that you arrest them, you bring them into to justice. Here is AP's Matt Lee asking State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller about this raid and whether the United States condones these type of hit squads. I don't know what else to describe it as.
Yeah. Okay. And then my second thing, which is related but not UNRWA, which has to do with this operation that the Israelis launched in Jenin, a hospital today. What do you have any comment on that? Is this something that you think is problematic, or is it something that you look at with envy? Like this is some kind of great Mission Impossible mission that we wish that we could also do?
So I'd say that we strongly urge caution whenever operations have the potential to impact civilians and civilian installations. That, of course, includes hospitals. We do recognize the very real security challenges Israel faces and its legitimate right to defend its people and its territory from terrorism. Israel, of course, has the right to carry out operations to bring terrorists to justice, but those operations need to be conducted in full compliance with international humanitarian law.
Well, those operations include going into hospitals and murdering people in their beds, regardless of whether they're they are suspected or even known terrorists.
So,
is that okay with you guys?
So there was a lot in the premise of that question. Obviously, we did know that they went into.
Well, you don't think that they went in and killed complete people who were completely innocent.
So let me say that
if you did think that, then you would be condemning it, right?
We certainly would, but I would say that Israel has said that these were Hamas operatives. They have said that one of them was carrying a gun at the time of the operation. So I'm not able to speak to the facts of the operation. You'd have to pass some kind of legal judgment, know all of the facts of the operation. But as a general matter, they do have the right to carry out operations to bring terrorists to justice, but they need to be conducted.
Including in a hospital.
So we want them to conduct their operations in compliance with international humanitarian law. We would generally say that we don't want them to carry out operations in hospitals, but under international humanitarian law, hospitals do lose some of their protections if they are being used for the planning of terrorist operations.
Can you pause it?
Get specific.
Wait. Where have I read that? Where have I read that stipulation? That hospitals in international law, I have not heard that before, that if they're being used as some sort of terrorist center, as they claim, that they lose some sort of protection. That seems quite specific to Israel's claims versus what international law would indicate. But I would have to do a deeper dive into that.
But even if that's the case, even if you stipulate that's the case, which I don't necessarily, but even if you were, by all the evidence here, they're in there with one handgun, these 3 guys, one of whom was paralyzed. They're in hospital beds. what kind of sophisticated planning is going on here while they're in the hospital? But that's the part that seems to be highly suspect.
And the West Bank, we know.
This was just basically a hit squad.
Yeah.
We know in the West Bank that these kind of extrajudicial killings are becoming, well, before October 7th, there was a record number of Palestinians killed by settlers and cops and IDF folks in that area. We know that that's ramped up in the West Bank where Hamas supposedly is not operating, although now they're making those claims. We know that that's increased even more after October 7th. Are we just moving past the fact that the 17-year-old Palestinian American kid was shot and executed by an off-duty cop allegedly in the West Bank just last week? Was this not right? I mean, this is much more in keeping with the kinds of extrajudicial killings that we're seeing in the West Bank than it would be with any kind of legitimate military operation. I mean, and Miller is struggling there.
Well, because this is BS by those complicit in genocide. Because, I mean, to get a lecture about don't rush to judgment by people who right after the ICJ does the, hey, this is looking like a genocide for us to be concerned, suspends funding for UNRWA.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, we're going to really talk about waiting to get all the facts here or rushing to judgment, please. It's all just, none of this stuff is meant to be taken really that seriously.
And you know
right,
why?
Let's just let the rest of this finish.
In hospitals, but under international humanitarian law, hospitals do lose some of their protections if they are being used for the planning of terrorist operations, for the execution of terrorist operations.
The actual hospital building does, but I mean, going in disguised as women and doctors and whatever is something different, and then going in and taking out people in particular rooms and particular beds and killing them seems to be something different.
So again, not able to offer an assessment without knowing all these facts. I said some of the facts that have been presented by Israel were that one of them was carrying a gun and that they were planning to carry out or to launch terrorist operations. So you would have to look at all of those facts to make a specific assessment about this operation. But in general, we do want to see hospitals protected. It is important that no civilians were harmed in this operation. And as I said, we do believe that's
how do you know that?
There have been no reports of civilians who have been harmed in this operation.
Can I follow up on this, please?
Go ahead, sorry.
Actually, on both.
It is unbelievable that he is going to cite that no civilians were harmed in this operation, because in what circumstance has the United States been concerned about the harm to civilians in other operations? I mean, there's been expressed concern, but there has been absolutely not an iota of action that would suggest the United States is concerned about civilian harm.
There's no hospital operations happening in Gaza because all the hospitals are destroyed. That's happening in the West Bank, I guess. He also just takes what Israel says as fact that these were Hamas fighters. We still don't have any evidence to that effect.
Yeah, there's no reports of that either. Interesting.